low-level nonviolent offenses. Because integrity and due diligence is paramount to maintain trust in the criminal justice system, it is incumbent on my office to thoroughly review each individual case that is presented to my office to determine the proper way to proceed and decide how justice would best be served. And that is exactly what we do in every case, and it's what we did in these cases. While police officers are held to the legal standard of probable cause in their work, as prosecutors, we are held to the highest standard in the legal system, which is beyond a reasonable doubt. We have an ethical obligation to determine whether we have sufficient evidence to seek and obtain a conviction by a jury of one's peers. We also have the responsibility to determine if pursuing any case is in the interest of justice, in the interest of public safety, and aligns with the values of this community, the community that elected me to this position. And as any government agency, we must weigh and determine the best use of our limited resources as we manage a caseload of approximately 28,000 misdemeanor cases. This is how the system is supposed to work. This is the discretion that I've been given. We had a team of prosecutors who spent approximately 90 hours evaluating these cases. We reviewed the evidence and the law and considered many factors, including the legitimate concerns whether there were violations of constitutionally protected rights of free speech. After examining and weighing all the evidence presented, we have determined that we cannot meet our legal burden to prove these 79 criminal trespass cases beyond a reasonable doubt, and they will be dismissed. I want to emphasize that these cases only involve individuals charged with criminal trespasses on April 29th on the South Lawn at the UT campus. These do not involve any other offenses, and those remain pending in our office, so I cannot comment on those cases. I want to acknowledge the work of law enforcement officers who responded to these protests. They were directed by the governor and the university officials, and they followed that direction. As a former Austin firefighter and someone with family who are active duty police officers, people that I love and care about do this work, I have seen the difficult work they do every day when they are called to action. While I may not always agree with law enforcement tactics, they are important partners who we work with daily to ensure the safety of this community. Just as they make discretionary decisions every day on whether to make an arrest or not, we make discretionary decisions every day on whether to proceed with prosecution. This is how the system is supposed to work. Our decision today is based on the circumstances and evidence and our determination that we cannot meet our legal burden, and that should in no way diminish the work they do on the street and the sacrifices they and their families make for all of us. As we head into 4th of July celebrations and think about the many sacrifices many have made in our community to safeguard this community and to defend our democracy, I hope that our community reflects on the direction we seem to be going in as a state. The decisions that were made in response to these protests continues to show, as I've said before, the severe lack of leadership we expect from our elected leaders as they continue to prioritize extreme government overreach over actual public safety. Lastly, I want to thank the prosecutors who reviewed these cases, a team of prosecutors. Our prosecutors have a caseload of hundreds of cases. Our community has made it clear that they want us to prioritize violent crime. The bulk of our cases are DWIs, assault family violence, indecent assault cases. And in addition to carrying their regular caseload, they also did the work to review all of these cases to make sure that we were doing everything we can to do a thorough review and respond to the community, again, who elected me to do this job and to have this discretion. And so those are my prepared statements, and I'll open it up to a few questions.
Sure, okay.
In terms to, say that again, like compared to the first batch? Well, the first batch we determined didn't have probable cause, and as I mentioned, that's the first initial legal test that police officers have to meet in order to book someone into jail. And so we started to review those cases, and when the argument was made that there was a concern for probable cause, because these are standards that we have an ethical obligation to meet. If you are taking someone's liberty away, you have to make sure that you are doing it in a constitutional correct way. So those were kind of different than these. This last, I'll just call it batch, these 79, did meet the initial test of probable cause. And so that requires our prosecutors to review any evidence submitted, including probable cause affidavits, offense reports. I'll add there were hundreds of pages of offense reports, as well as body cam footage, to determine if we can meet our legal burden. And so it's a more lengthy review.
Ms. Garza, was there any added pressure on your office from outside forces, including the governor's office, to prosecute these cases a certain way?
I mean, I'll say they never reached out to my office, I'll say that. And again, I want to emphasize, you know, the overreach that I think a lot of us are feeling in Texas, and wanting to just make sure that we were doing our job as prosecutors to review these. I didn't feel any pressure. We handled these cases like we handle all other cases. If we feel like they meet the initial test of probable cause, we're going to review those cases, and do the right thing, and make sure we are, you know, weighing all these different factors, our resources. Can we meet this burden? Do we have the evidence? And so I didn't feel any pressure, any more pressure than any other case that we have to review.
Garza, can you talk a little bit about if these dismissal of charges is specifically for criminal trespassing, or if there are other charges that are being dropped along with this batch of charges?
These are purely all criminal trespass cases. There are some other cases that remain under review, and we are still making decisions on how to proceed with those cases.
This may fall under those cases that are being under review, but Fox 7 photographer was arrested during that time, and I wanted to know if he's within those that are getting dismissed as well.
That's another case that still remains under review.
Thank you so much for your time. You mentioned free speech concerns and how your office reviewed those. What did you determine when it came to First Amendment concerns?
Well, I think the things we have to weigh when we're factoring these is any arguments defense counsel will make, and also what will a jury of one's peers be weighing. And so those are the factors that we think about. How is this going to be viewed in light of the fact that these students were on a college campus protesting? And so I mean, I wouldn't say we did an in-depth legal analysis of constitutional free speech. Is just one of the factors we weigh in determining, can we prove this with beyond a reasonable doubt.
Last question, Katie.
You mentioned your obvious respect for law enforcement, but of course maybe not so much alignment with some of the tactics. Now you've got two batches of these cases, like you said, all being dismissed, which obviously takes up resources. So is there a bigger conversation with law enforcement now, so we don't keep going down this route of resources being spent just for dismissals to happen?
Well, you know, police officers and law enforcement not agreeing with prosecutors is not new to the criminal justice system. It's not new to my administration. It's, you know, it's always been a little bit of a rub, but that's the way the system is set up. It's intentionally set up to have these checks and balances, and intentionally set up to have somebody who is elected to office to make these decisions. And so I don't think we will ever solve the concerns of law enforcement. I just wanted to emphasize that I understand the frustration that they feel, and again, they were acting at the direction of the governor and university leadership. They did what they were told to do. I voiced my concerns about that then, when you know, you're asking folks to go in and into potentially what can evolve into a dangerous situation. I wish leaders, you know, our state leadership and even the university leadership had thought of I feel like there could have been another solution to allow these students to voice what they felt like they needed to voice. You know, the freedom of speech, the foundation of it was so that government did not interfere, was so that government doesn't stop speech that it doesn't agree with. It's not just speech we agree with, it's speech that we don't agree with. That's exactly why it's there. And so like I said, I have family members that are law enforcement. I understand their frustration. Christmases and Thanksgivings are interesting sometimes, but we agree to disagree sometimes, and I think the community, you know, any decision I make aligns with the community that elected me.
Thank you all. Appreciate it. If you have any follow-up
Thank you.